Hello, everyone. Here we go with part 2. After arriving in Camden on April 15th, the food supply had started to become critically low. Furthermore, General Steele needed to know the positioning of the Confederates along the Camden Road between Camden and Shreveport. So General Steele decided to send out a 1,000-man detachment with about 200 wagons towards Shreveport, one to gather food and the other to gather information on the positioning of the Confederates. General Williams was assigned to the detachment. General Williams left out with the detachment on the morning of April 17th, and they went towards Shreveport, filling up the wagons just about all that day. But they did not completely fill all of them, so they stayed on the Camden Road the night of April 17th, and on the morning of April 18th, they filled the rest of the wagons and began to head back to Camden. As they traveled, they came upon a place known as Poison Springs. There, a small detachment of Confederates appeared before them, and after a brief skirmish, the Confederates retreated down the Camden Road. Colonel Williams decided to set out flankers and continue the path down the Camden Road. As they came upon another clearing, they could see that the Confederates had formed another skirmish line ahead of them. So Colonel Williams ordered that the wagons be boarded up and circled in the defensive position. He then ordered the 1st Kansas Colored to man defensive positions, and he sent the cavalry to charge the Confederate line. As the cavalry charged the Confederate line, they came upon a clearing, and they would realize that they had been drawn into a trap. A much larger Confederate force of about 4,000 men were there laying in hiding. They opened up with cannon and shot on the charging cavalry and forced them to retreat back to the wagon train. The Confederates then opened up with a long barrage of cannon fire and shot. And after the firing of the cannons for about 20 minutes, the Confederates sent in troops under the command of General Maxcy. As they tried to attack the wagon train, the positions around the wagon train, they were severely repulsed by the 1st Kansas Colored and forced to retreat. After their retreat, the Confederates opened up with another barrage of cannons. This time, it seemed to centralize on the black soldiers that were in their defensive positions around the wagons. After about 15 to 20 minutes of cannon fire, the Confederates stopped firing their cannons, and this time they sent in 2 divisions. The first one was General Maxcy attacking again, but this time with some fresh troops, and General Marmaduke attacking with his troops. And they came from 2 different sides in their attack on the wagon train. Now, at this time, the 1st Kansas Colored was low on ammunition, so they allowed them to get within yards of the wagon train before they fired the remainder of their ammunition at the Confederates and then charged them. After they charged them, the brutal hand-to-hand combat forced both General Maxcy's troops and General Marmaduke's troops to retreat again for the 2nd time. But now the 7th Corps was out of ammo, and many dead and dying soldiers laid on the battlefield. However, Colonel Williams ordered all the troops to retreat to a swamp so that they would be able to retreat and get away from the battle site and make their way back to Camden. As the troops were walking through the swamp, they could hear the cries of their fellow soldiers as the soldiers of General Maxcy and General Marmaduke did some of the most heinous acts of humankind on the soldiers that had surrendered and that were dying, that were black. They mutilated them with complete savagery. And I know a lot of white historians are gonna like to say that it was the Indians that did it, but I'm here to tell you that it wasn't. As a matter of fact, at Fort Pillow, the founder of the Ku Klux Klan was a general in the Confederate Army. At Fort Pillow, he attacked Fort Pillow with around 2,000, 3,000 men, and Fort Pillow was only garrisoned by 600 men. 200 of them were black. not counting women and children. When Melford Bidford Ford, whatever that clown's name was, when he attacked and captured Fort Pillow, he murdered everything black in the compound. Not one black person was spared, man, women, and children. Same thing here with Poison Spring. But I believe that it wasn't the Indians, and it wasn't purely out of hatred, but because they got whooped. I just told y'all, at Prairie du Chien, the 1st and 2nd Kansas went in and tore the frame out of Marmaduke and his troops. General Price, all of them. They got whooped on Prairie du Chien. Like I told you before, I haven't told y'all everything because I said I want to make this an animated movie. So with that being said, I'm going to come back with part 3 to let you know what happened after they got back to Camden.